Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be looking into another disturbing case with you. We constantly encounter reminders of the transient nature of human existence in our world. One minute, you're having a wonderful time with your loved ones, and the next they're yelling for help and reaching out their bloodied hands for you to take. However, you can't take it because your entire life is flashing before your eyes at the same time. It's not a movie, but it's the most terrifying thing you've ever seen. Although we only have one life, death can be brutal, unexpected, and intrusive. We are about to tell a story filled with pain, torment, and torture. We extend our love and respect to all those who knew and loved the Ortega family, and to all those impacted by this case.
Police and coroners located the last of the bodies this morning. A particularly difficult task after the intense fire that reduced the home to rubble.
It's never like this. I'm shocked. I would never picture in my right mind he would ever do something to a family. I'm just devastated.
Merry Christmas to me, and just kept walking down this way, and that was it.
Imagine a Christmas party with loved ones gathered to celebrate the holiday season. But in an instant, the joy and laughter gave way to horror and tragedy. On December 24th, 2008, the Covina massacre shook the small town of Covina, California, leaving 9 people dead and a community in shock. Gunshots rang out, and a devastating arson fire engulfed the home, trapping victims inside. The party turned into a terrible nightmare. Many people got hurt, and many questions were left unanswered. It was a tragic and frightening moment. But what caused this unspeakable act of violence? The Covina massacre serves as a haunting reminder that even in the most joyful times, darkness can strike without warning. On Christmas Eve, the Ortega family was having a wonderful time together at their Covina home. In the dining room, Papa Joe Ortega, his 53-year-old wife, and their children were playing Texas Hold'em late into the night. They'd just finished dinner and were enjoying each other's company. The grandchildren were in the backyard, playing video games and relaxing by the pool. They had so much fun that they didn't want the night to end. Meanwhile, upstairs, Michael, the Ortega's 17-year-old grandson, was sitting at his computer, typing away. It was a peaceful and delightful moment, with everyone doing what they enjoyed. But little did they know that this peaceful night was about to transform into a horror film. There was a sudden knock at the front door. The 8-year-old girl let out a squeal of delight. Santa Claus, Santa Claus. A man dressed as Santa Claus walked in, pulled out a gun, and shot the little girl in the face. 2 of her uncles tried to protect her, but they were also shot and fell to the ground. The rest of the family, including the Ortegas and their 3 daughters, attempted to hide under the dining table. Unfortunately, it was too late. The gunman, who was ex-husband of one of the daughters, was unstoppable. A flamethrower device ignited the fire with extreme intensity, causing a massive explosion and sending flames skyward. The flames reached a height of 40 to 50 feet, equivalent to a 5-story building. It was a massive fire that took a lot of manpower to extinguish. In fact, it took a team of 80 firefighters over an hour and a half to put out the fire. Can you imagine how dangerous and frightening it must have been for the people inside the house, as well as the firefighters attempting to save them? The intensity of the fire made it difficult to identify the victims. The intense flames damaged the bodies and made identification impossible. As a result, the investigators had to use alternative methods to determine who was who. They identified the victims using dental records, such as X-rays of the teeth, and medical records, such as scars or other distinguishing characteristics. It was a difficult task, but they were able to use the clues to figure out who was present that tragic night. That night, the Ortega family's worst fears came true. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo, the gunman, was unrelenting. He murdered Papa Joe, his wife, 4 of their children, 2 daughters-in-law, and even his 17-year-old grandson, who was innocently sitting at his computer. No one was spared. They'd brutally murdered the entire family, who had just celebrated a happy Christmas Eve. There were approximately 25 to 30 people celebrating Christmas Eve with the Ortega family. However, following the tragedy, the survivors were unwilling to discuss it publicly. However, some investigators shared information that corroborated the family members' claims. This information helps us understand what occurred inside the house. The family members described an extremely frightening scene. A man with a gun wanted to hurt and kill people. The family members attempted to flee and save their loved ones, but it was extremely difficult because everyone was terrified and disoriented. Bruce arrived at the party to find many of the adults gathered near the front door because some people were getting ready to leave. This made them straightforward targets once the attack began. According to family members, Charles, one of the Ortega sons, recognized the gunman after he shot his 8-year-old niece and his older brother, James. Someone yelled out, "It's Bruce." Charles was shot immediately after James was shot. It was a terrifying and dangerous situation, and everyone was rushing to get away from the gunman. Irma Chapa Ortega, a close family member, revealed a heartbreaking detail about the tragedy. She stated that James and Charles Ortega attempted to get up and stop the gunman despite their injuries. They were severely injured, but they still attempted to stand up and grab him. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Irma also claimed that the older Ortegas, Joseph and Alicia, their 3 daughters, and one of their daughters-in-law, Teresa, hid under the dining room table. She had contacted some of the family members who had survived the attack, and they had shared this information with her. Someone yelled, "Run, run," and chaos ensued. The Ortegas, along with 2 of their daughters, Sylvia and Alicia, could have been killed in the dining room, but their daughter, Letitia, who had a severely injured little girl, managed to survive. Letitia had hid under the table for a brief period. She called 911 and told the police dispatcher, "I heard the shots," and everyone started panicking and running, and we all dove under the dining room table.
He's shooting! He's shooting! What's your address? Ma'am, I understand. I need to know your address.
He shot. I heard the shots, and they were like poppers, and I wasn't sure what it was, so everyone started panicking and running, so we all dove under the dining room. Some of us dove, some of us left. I don't know. My daughter has been shot. She was shot in the face on the side, and she's bleeding.
I know. I let the officers know. The officers are making sure it's safe for the paramedics to
I
come
need a
in.
bandage, please. Please come immediately.
What is in your house?
Immediately. I don't know who else is alive.
I know, ma'am. Just stay on the phone with me, okay?
My whole family, there's 30 people, 25 people.
I know.
Chapa told a heroic story about her cousin Letitia. She claimed Letitia saw her injured daughter stumble out of the house and decided to flee. According to a source familiar with the investigation, even though the gunman shot the young girl in the face, she may have saved her own life by turning her head at the last second. The bullet struck her jaw, but fortunately, it did not kill her. The person who gave this detail didn't want to be named because the police were still investigating what happened. Following this, Letitia screamed at the dispatcher, "I need someone to come over and help my daughter. She's bleeding. She has been shot in the face." Some adults quickly grabbed the children and carried them to safety. Investigators believe that the gunman's opening fire saved the majority of the young people, who were likely playing video games in the back of the house near the TV. The gunman injured the 8-year-old girl and shot the 16-year-old girl in the back, but both girls managed to survive. The only young person who did not make it was Michael Ortiz, a 17-year-old sitting at the upstairs computer. According to Chapa, Michael was most likely killed by an explosion or fire that began when the gunman set fire to the house with a homemade device made of 2 tanks. Law enforcement sources suggest that Michael's death was due to the fire or explosion, not a gunshot wound. The loss of a young life in such a senseless act of violence is tragic. Alicia, Michael's mother, was also killed. But why did the murderer carry out such a brutal act of violence? Bruce, a 45-year-old man, was furious when his marriage ended. He and his wife had just gotten divorced, and he was consumed by hurt and anger. Rather than dealing with his emotions in a healthy manner, he chose to exact revenge on her and her family. He chose a tragic and devastating approach, attacking them at their annual Christmas party in Covina, California. A team of FBI experts investigated Bruce's behavior and discovered that he had some mental health issues, such as extreme narcissism and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Although it is not an excuse or justification, these circumstances most likely influenced his decision to commit such a heinous crime. It's heartbreaking that a family's joyful occasion turned into a tragedy due to one person's anger and illness. Bruce devised a plan to flee following his attack on the Ortega family. He even purchased a plane ticket to Illinois, believing he could simply leave the chaos behind and start over. However, his plan didn't work out as he expected. When he set the house on fire, he severely burned himself. He suffered second and third-degree burns to his arms, which are extremely painful and serious injuries. Instead of escaping, he suffered severe burns. It's amazing how his plan backfired and caused his own suffering. Following his failed escape attempt, Bruce drove 40 miles to his brother's home in Sylmar. He went there to take his own life. Lieutenant Fred Corral of the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office stated that Bruce was wounded on the top of his head, indicating that he put the gun in his mouth before pulling the trigger. Bruce was required to undergo a toxicology test, with results expected within 6 weeks. This test would determine whether Bruce had any drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of his death. When the police searched Bruce's body, they discovered something strange. He had wrapped $17,000 in cash around his legs with plastic wrap, and he was wearing girdle-style underwear to keep it secure. They also discovered his rental car parked a block away from his brother's home. However, when they attempted to move the car, they discovered it was rigged with a dangerous device that would explode if touched. The police had to be very cautious. They discovered 4 empty handguns inside his brother's house, as well as over 200 rounds of ammunition. They also found some rigged-to-explode leftover pieces of his Santa suit. Back at Bruce's home in Montrose, California, the police discovered even more dangerous items. They discovered empty boxes that had previously held semi-automatic handguns, a special type of shotgun known as a Benelli M2 Tactical, and a container for highly flammable gasoline. But what was most shocking was what they described as a virtual bomb factory in his home. It resembled a secret workshop where he had been creating dangerous devices. Fortunately, the police uncovered all of this before any individuals suffered harm. On the outside, Bruce Pardo appeared to be a very charming and generous person. But on the inside, he was hiding some serious issues.
You know, when I first heard it, I knew he was wearing a Santa suit, and I knew who he was because I had seen him, but more than one time. So, but I didn't think anything of it until they were saying that he used the Santa suit and he put stuff in the Santa suit, like guns and whatever he used. And then it kind of freaked me out, thinking that maybe he had already planned this for a long time.
His marriage was falling apart and causing him a great deal of pain, but he didn't show it to those around him. Even his closest friends were unaware of what was going on behind closed doors. They had no idea that long before his divorce was finalized, Bruce had begun secretly collecting weapons and devising an elaborate escape plan. He was leading a double life, and no one suspected anything. In 2004, Bruce Pardo met Sylvia Orraza, her brother-in-law, who worked with Bruce at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, introduced them. Sylvia was 40 years old and had 3 children from 2 previous marriages. Bruce's friends thought she was ideal for him, a kind and practical woman with a large family. They hoped she could help him calm down and be happy. And for a while, it looked like they were correct. Bruce and Sylvia married and began a new life together. Pardo initially found solace in the friendly and welcoming family of his wife. But after the first year of their marriage, she told friends that he had become cold, unhappy, and distant. They frequently argued about money. Bruce and Sylvia made the decision to separate in March 2008. Sylvia asked Bruce if she could stay in their home until her daughter completed kindergarten. but Bruce wouldn't have it. While Sylvia was at a family gathering, Bruce packed up her belongings and left them in the driveway. Sylvia was devastated. She had to move in with her sister in Glendale and later filed for divorce. On June 13th, Bruce went to Gun World in Burbank and purchased a handgun for nearly $1,000 in cash. On July 31st, he lost his job due to fraud and tried unsuccessfully to apply for unemployment benefits. He returned to Gun World on August 8th and purchased another handgun. He kept returning to the store, purchasing a total of 5 handguns. He also ordered a Santa suit from a costume shop, claiming it was for a children's party. He paid a $200 deposit and agreed to pick it up in November. Bruce also went to a gun shop in Iowa and purchased 16 magazines capable of holding 18 bullets each, which is far more than California law allows. And just a week before Christmas, his marriage to Sylvia was officially over. They had too many problems and couldn't solve them. So the judge ended their marriage in a Burbank courthouse. Just before Christmas, Bruce Pardo rented 2 cars, a Dodge and a Toyota. He packed the Toyota with maps, water, food, clothing, and a can of gas. He also installed 2 computers. Later that night, his neighbor Bong Garcia noticed him leaving in the Dodge, which was unusual considering he usually drives his fancy Escalator Hummer. Bruce said he was going to a Christmas party, but Bong found it strange. He had gone to exact his revenge. After he set fire to the house, a neighbor noticed a blue car driving away with its headlights off. Someone had left a pair of fake glasses and a Santa hat in the front yard. Bruce drove 40 miles to Sylmar, where his brother lived. He suffered severe burns on his arms, hands, neck, and legs. His Santa suit had melted onto his skin. He was in a terrible state, and he couldn't get away. When his brother arrived home at 3:10 a.m., he discovered Bruce's body on the couch with 2 guns beside him. He shot himself in the mouth. He was still wearing the wedding ring. Letitia Yusuf Polsky is a strong woman who refuses to let anger and hatred consume her. She says she can't change what happened. I can only concentrate on the positive aspects that have come my way. I appreciate it. She appreciates the love and support she has received from people she does not even know. This gratitude has enabled her to heal and find peace. Letitia has also stopped thinking about the past and the people who hurt her family. She says, "This is what he has done. Enough. I will not let you consume us with your evilness." Instead, she chooses love and inspires others to do the same. Letitia believes that love is the most powerful energy and that it can unite people and help them heal. She also believes that teaching our children about love and kindness is important so that they can become positive role models for others. She believes that our children are our future, and we must set an example for them. If we teach them to hate, be violent, and degrade others, what hope do we have?
During a school walkout, Katrina Yusuf Polsky read the names of the 17 victims killed in Parkland, Florida 1 month ago.
Nicholas Warren.
Gun violence is personal for the LaSalle High School student. Nearly 10 years ago, she survived a Christmas Eve massacre when she was only 8.
Being able to really fight for something that is truly, truly close to my heart is very different.
12 years have passed, and Letitia and Katrina Yusuf Polsky are working hard to preserve their family's traditions and joyful memories. The family continues to gather for dinner, exchange gifts, and share stories about their loved ones who are no longer with them. On Christmas Eve, instead of going to church, they visit the cemetery where their family members rest. In the tragedy, one nephew lost both parents and now guards his 3 younger siblings. Letitia and her husband took in her sister's youngest daughter, and Letitia worked hard to ensure that the surviving children still felt the spirit of Christmas. She told them the Santa who arrived that night was fake. The children even attended a special camp to help them cope with their grief and trauma. Letitia says that everywhere you look, memories of what we had and that terrible night are there. You can't avoid it. Despite the pain, Letitia knows that Christmas will always be special, and they will continue to celebrate, no matter what. Even though the investigation ended nearly 10 years ago, the detectives who assisted the family remain in contact, particularly around Christmas. They care about their family and want to ensure that they are doing well. We have reached the end of today's video. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, please like it, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.